Reality never warns before it breaks. It just cracks, like glass under pressure, and suddenly nothing is the same again. You can feel it now, the heavy air, the silence that hides more than it reveals, the sense that something urgent is happening just out of sight. It's like walking on thin ice. Each step feels safe until you hear the crack. And once it does, there's no going back. What's about to be revealed isn't just information. It's the kind of discovery that changes the way you breathe, think, and decide. There are risks in ignoring, because some doors only open once. There are pains in postponing, because time doesn't forgive those who hesitate. And there's an implicit promise. Within what seems simple lies the key to transforming an entire destiny. How many times have you felt like life repeats itself, like an echo that insists on bringing the same mistakes, the same falls, the same obstacles? The conflict isn't just external, it's internal, in the way your body reacts, in the way your heart races when fear dictates the pace. Every day, between chaos and calm, there's an invisible choice, and almost everyone experiences it without realizing it. But there is a gap. A short, narrow crack that only appears to those who pay attention. What if this crack were the fine line between living in noise and living in harmony? Between merely surviving and finally creating? Ask yourself, how many opportunities have you missed because you thought you had more time? What stands before you now is like a small flame in the middle of the night. If ignored, it will go out. If smothered, it will die. But if tended to at the right moment, it will transform into a light capable of igniting an entire path. This moment has a deadline. It breathes like you breathe. And when it expires, it doesn't return. Have you ever noticed how the biggest changes don't arrive with clarion calls or announcements? They creep in through almost invisible details, like the way someone looks away, a stray phrase that echoes, or a silence that weighs more heavily than any words. This is how life reveals its turning points. Subtly, almost imperceptibly, until suddenly everything changes and you wonder how you missed it before. The conflict pulsating here is both simple and brutal, the distance between what we feel inside and what we show the world. Often, the body already knows something is wrong, but the mind insists on postponing, rationalizing, and pretending it's in control. And it's in this space that opportunity is lost. Think about how many times you've ignored that tightness in your chest, that clear intuition telling you, don't go down that path. Perhaps, deep down, you've experienced this exact fracture, when choices are delayed and the price is too high. Now imagine standing in front of a mirror that reflects not only your appearance, but all the signs you usually suppress. Your racing heart, your shallow breathing, the weight on your shoulders. This image isn't about your physical body, but about everything you carry without a name. It's in this mirror that the revelation insinuates itself. Life doesn't respond to what you desire, it responds to who you are in silence, when no one is looking. Some resist this realization because it requires courage. The courage to stop, to look within, and accept that the universe is shaped not by promises, but by the frequency you emit with each gesture, with each breath. That's why so many people choose to stay here, following each revelation, because they sense something true being touched, something that can no longer be ignored. What opens before us is not a ready-made answer, but a path that demands presence. And, like every unknown road, it doesn't reveal its destination right away. There is more to be revealed, more layers waiting to emerge, and it is precisely in this attentive waiting that transformation begins to happen. And when we ignore these subtle signs, what happens isn't just the loss of a random opportunity, but the unleashing of invisible currents that pull us to places we never consciously chose. It's like walking down a dark corridor where every closed door holds a price, and the longer we delay acting, the higher that price becomes. At first, it seems like a mere inconvenience, a bearable discomfort, but little by little, what was once small grows until it takes up all the space within us. It's at this point that many realize they're no longer making decisions, merely being carried along by a flow they can no longer control. The body grows sick with silence, the mind repeats itself in circles, relationships begin to fray under the weight of attention never before named. The conflict, then, becomes greater. It's not just about missing an opportunity, but about allowing life itself to be shaped by fear and hesitation. Imagine the scene, a house where the windows remain permanently closed. From the outside, everything appears intact, but inside, the air becomes dense, heavy, and difficult to breathe. With each passing day without opening a crack, the atmosphere suffocates, until it becomes impossible to ignore. This house is us when we postpone the moment of aligning what we feel with what we experience. And the air that suffocates is precisely the absence of choice, the endless wait for an ideal moment that never arrives. But there's also another side, as real as the shadow, the possibility that creeps in even on the darkest days. The reminder that all it takes is a tiny opening, a different breath, for the light to shine through and reveal what has always been there, waiting. It's in this contrast between confinement and liberation that the true weight of this tension lies. Because time doesn't stop, and with every heartbeat, the decision draws closer, whether it's made or not. The question isn't just whether we will act, but what will happen if we don't. This answer, however, doesn't come immediately. It lurks between the lines, waiting for the moment when everything that has been repressed finally reveals itself in its entirety. There comes a moment when tension ceases to be just a weight and begins to reveal itself as a calling. It's not always easy to recognize this, because it arrives disguised as discomfort, insomnia, and thoughts that insist on returning even when you try to distract yourself. It's as if something is knocking on the door from within, demanding entry, and the more you pretend not to hear it, the louder that calling becomes. Perhaps you've felt this way when you lie down at night, when the world falls silent and there's no more noise to mask what screams inside. The ceiling seems closer, the air thicker, and your body, motionless, becomes the stage for a secret dialogue between what you reveal and what you hide. At these times, even the smallest detail gains intensity. The creaking of furniture, the ticking of a clock, the breath that seems too shallow. Everything transforms into signals that remind you that there's something waiting to be looked at. But this same discomfort can be seen from another angle. It's not just noise, it's also a chink. A reminder that there's still movement, still life pulsing beneath the layers of weariness. It's at this point that many feel the urge to support this journey, leaving a silent sign that the message has touched them, like someone lighting a small candle in the dark to avoid walking alone. Now imagine the opposite of darkness, an open window after days of storms. The cool air rushes in, the curtains move, and for the first time you take a deep breath, as if the oxygen were different, clearer, cleaner. This contrast reveals that the tension isn't there to imprison, but to remind you that something new is possible. And yet, the full answer still eludes us. What's hinted at now is merely the surface of something deeper, something beyond ordinary words. It's the promise that, upon crossing this threshold, you will never be the same again, and that's precisely where the story begins to turn into a revelation. Sometimes, what scares us most isn't the darkness itself, but the thought that there may never be a way out. This thought settles like a long shadow, following every step, reminding us that time doesn't wait and that life can slip through our fingers without us even realizing it. It's at this point that fear becomes a silent companion, shaping choices, limiting horizons, and closing doors before they're even opened. And yet, amidst this heaviness, there is always a thread of hope. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand, it just remains there, like a thin line of light piercing the cracks in an ancient wall. Small, but enough to reveal that darkness isn't everything. The contrast between these two worlds, the paralyzing fear and the insistent hope, creates a tension no human heart can ignore. It's the rope stretched between the abyss and the crossing, waiting for the moment someone decides to step foot and trust. Imagine being in a closed room for years, the air still, memories stuck to the walls. Suddenly, someone opens a tiny door, and a breath of fresh air fills the space. It's not enough to change everything, but it's enough to prove that there's something beyond. This breath is a reminder that what binds us isn't permanent. It's also a warning that the time for this choice doesn't last forever. And in this gap, between the fear of losing and the chance to find, life reveals itself as an uncertain territory. Every silence carries a hidden revelation. Every gesture left unmade can transform into an irreversible void. The heart knows this before the mind, and that's why it beats faster, as if trying to warn that something essential is about to happen. This is the point where boundaries begin to dissolve. What seemed solid shows cracks, and what seemed unattainable begins to draw closer. There is something greater waiting to be unveiled, something that cannot yet be named, but whose presence is already felt, like an echo before the storm. It's curious how life always presents us with choices that seem small, but which, when postponed, grow like shadows lengthening at sunset. The fear of losing what we already know weighs as heavily as the desire to achieve what we have yet to see. Between these two extremes, we are made of silence and waiting, as if each heartbeat were a reminder that time never stops, even when we hesitate. There are times when hope emerges like a delicate flame, barely protected from the wind, and a single breath is all it takes for it to nearly go out. Yet it endures, and its tiny light manages to reshape the contours of the space around it. It is in this contrast that life holds us captive, the flickering flame against the immense darkness. And at every moment, we feel as if one false step is all it takes for everything to fall apart, or one courageous gesture for everything to transform. Imagine walking down a corridor where half the walls are made of glass and half of stone. On one side, the transparency lets in light, revealing possible paths. On the other, the opaque weight imprisons, as if reminding you that nothing changes without effort. With each step, you feel the tension between these two sides, the invitation to choose which perspective to hold, the one that sees barriers or the one that sees passages. And as this tension builds, a peculiar sensation sets in. It's not just anxiety, not just anticipation. It's like being about to hear a word that's never been spoken, as if the air around you carries a secret ready to be revealed. But it doesn't come immediately. It remains suspended, hovering like a held breath, prolonging the moment when everything seems about to change and nothing has yet happened. And then what seemed like a silent choice begins to unfold into consequences that touch every aspect of life. It's not just a moment of indecision, but a series of echoes that spread, transforming relationships, decisions, and even the way we see ourselves. An unspoken word can change the course of an entire conversation. A delayed step can close a door that never opens again. And a gesture of courage, no matter how small, can illuminate lights that illuminate far beyond what we imagined. The images are clear when we allow ourselves to see them. Someone who, by hesitating, sees opportunities slip away like water through their fingers. Another who, by taking risks, finds paths that previously seemed impossible. It is in this contrast that life reveals its secret logic. Every action has a return, every movement elicits a reaction, and every silence also has its price. The effort may seem arduous, but it is precisely this that opens space for the unexpected return, for growth that doesn't reveal itself immediately, but accumulates silently, like seeds that sprout when we least expect it. It's like walking in a still empty field, trusting that the seed sown on the dark ground will one day yield a harvest. The interval between planting and seeing the first sprout is the most delicate territory, because it requires trust without proof, presence without guarantees. Many give up at this point, and precisely because of this, they lose the chance to see the result blossom. Others remain, sustaining the rhythm, and discover that every detail of life begins to respond differently, as if the whole world had been waiting for this movement. Perhaps you felt this, the feeling that a small choice changed everything, even without anyone else noticing. And it's in this moment of recognition that so many let slip a comment, as if recording in words the signal that they've understood. Because sometimes, all it takes is writing down what you feel to seal the transformation that's already begun. What is now being announced, however, goes beyond these initial consequences. It is something growing in silence, like a subterranean force about to break the surface. And when it surfaces, it will leave nothing as it was before. Every choice made in silence creates an invisible landscape, and it is within this landscape that the consequences begin to take shape. Some emerge as unexpected, discrete fruits, noticeable only to those who observe closely. Others impose themselves like strong winds, pushing everything out of place, reminding us that action does not exist without reaction. The curious thing is that, most of the time, we only realize the magnitude of these consequences once we're already within them, when looking back no longer changes anything and moving forward becomes the only option. There comes a time when progress seems real, but with it also comes a hidden challenge. As if each achievement carries within it a silent test, testing the extent to which we are willing to sustain what we ask for. It's like crossing a wooden bridge that creaks underfoot. On one side, the clarity of the open horizon. On the other, the uncertainty lurking in every creak of the boards. Our heart races, not only from the fear of falling, but from the knowledge that the other side holds something that cannot yet be fully revealed. During these journeys, the mind constructs contrasting images. On one side, the field blooming, seeds transformed into life, vivid colors sprouting where before there was only dry earth. On the other, heavy clouds threaten to erase everything, as if the sky were testing the solidity of the roots. This oscillation between hope and threat creates the rhythm of transformation. One step that strengthens, another that challenges, and both necessary for the journey to have meaning. It's in this interplay of forces that clarity blends with uncertainty. With each step forward, a new question arises. With each obstacle, a chance to see deeper. And so the journey becomes less about arriving and more about sustaining presence along the way, even when the ground seems unstable. What pulses now is not a definitive answer, but the feeling of being faced with something that announces itself on the edge of the invisible. Like the distant sound of a storm that hasn't yet arrived, but already alters the air, already changes the color of the sky, already awakens in those who observe the certainty that something greater is about to happen. There comes a point when consequences cease to be mere distant echoes and become clear landscapes before our eyes. What once seemed merely a premonition now takes shape, revealing shapes, colors, and textures that can no longer be ignored. With each step, something is confirmed, as if the path itself were bending to reveal the weight and beauty of choices already made in silence. Yet, along with clarity, comes doubt. How far can this journey take us, and what is the price of continuing? It is in this contrast that the experience deepens. On one side, the light that penetrates the cracks and reveals hidden details, like golden dust dancing in the illuminated air. On the other, the shadows that lengthen and seem to take on a life of their own, projecting fears we can't always distinguish from reality. This movement between light and shadow creates an intimate tension, a summons that allows no respite, as if the entire universe awaits the next gesture, the next breath, the next choice. Imagine yourself in an open field at dusk. The sun still shines, but it's already beginning to give way to night. The last rays illuminate the horizon with fiery hues, while behind you the sky darkens, heralding the arrival of darkness. In that moment, you feel both the promise of light and the weight of shadow. Your heart is torn between the confidence that something greater is opening up and the silent doubt of whether you have the strength to make it through. This scenario isn't just external. It unfolds within each of us, like an invisible theater where courage and fear alternate leading roles. At every moment, one takes center stage, while the other waits in the wings, ready to enter the stage. And the spectator of this play is our own consciousness, which cannot look away, knowing that the outcome will depend on how we choose to sustain this struggle. With each heartbeat, the story intensifies. The air seems thicker, the signs closer, and everything suggests something is about to be revealed. But, like a secret kept behind a door still ajar, the revelation doesn't come immediately. It hangs, suspended, like a breath that stretches too long, prolonging the anticipation, keeping alive the mystery of what is yet to come. And then comes the moment when everything that seemed suspended begins to align within you. It's not a loud revelation, no clarion calls or easy promises, but rather the intimate feeling that something has changed forever. As if the ground, once unstable, has become firmer. As if the air, once dense, has become breathable again. It's in this silent realization that true transformation occurs, when you understand that the journey wasn't just about bearing the weight of waiting, but about discovering that you already carry within you the strength to cross. Images become vivid. It's like standing in front of a mirror and seeing, for the first time, not just your reflection, but also the story that shaped it. Every mark, every silence, every unmade choice, everything takes on meaning, because it was precisely this that opened the space for you to see beyond today. Conquest doesn't eliminate the challenge, but rather redefines it. Fear doesn't disappear, but becomes fuel. Doubt doesn't dissolve, but becomes proof that confidence is real, because courage only exists where uncertainty also exists. At this point, the narrative is no longer just external. It's yours. It's as if every word thus far has served as a reminder that there are no spectators on this journey. Everyone who remains is part of the experience, part of the construction of this space of revelation. That's why so many leave a discreet sign, a written word, a simple gesture of support, because they know that this exchange keeps the flame burning. And when someone decides to stay, to like, comment, or subscribe, it's not just about supporting content, but about affirming to themselves, I choose to continue on this path, I choose not to return to survival mode. After all, living isn't about resisting what happens. It's about breathing as one who creates, about navigating contrasts knowing that weight and lightness are part of the same dance. You were present every step of this journey, and that's a rare privilege, witnessing the birth of something new within yourself. And as this cycle closes, the feeling you're left with isn't one of ending, but of opening. Like a door opening wide onto an unexpected horizon, making it clear that the true gift isn't the answer, but the silent transformation that has already begun to unfold within you.